Hi, everybody. Once again, my name is Linda Abraham. I'm the president and founder of Accepted, and I'm going to be presenting Get Accepted to Wharton. A word about me before we start. In addition to being the founder and CEO of Accepted, I also was the co-founder and first president of the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants. I've been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, Poets and Quants, US News, Business Week, Business Because, and CBS News, among other publications regarding MBA admissions. And sometimes, and I'm also the host, as you can see there, of Admissions Straight Talk podcast. Sometimes applicants wonder what's motivated me for the last almost 26 years to help applicants like you, both through our free resources and our paid one-on-one advising. Well, like many of you, I'd like to have an impact. And when I get emails like this one, it tells me that I'm changing people's lives, which is very gratifying. So what does the email say? I want to share the good news that I got accepted to Wharton and I was offered a significant scholarship. First of all, I cannot thank you, in this case, Natalie Greenblatt Epstein, who will be joining us at the end. I cannot thank you enough for your guidance through this process. I didn't even want to apply to Wharton out of fear of rejection, but thanks to you, I submitted my application, interviewed, and got a scholarship. I'll forever be grateful for your assistance through this process. This person was also later accepted to MIT Sloan. This is one of hundreds of emails that, probably thousands, that I've gotten over the years. And simply, as many of you know, it's very rewarding to make a difference in people's lives. Now, I'm looking forward to sharing my 26 years of admissions experience with you today. Before we begin, I wanted to mention a few to-dos that will help you maximize your time here and one that will help us improve these webinars. Number one, if you've not yet downloaded your webinar worksheet, take a second to do so and print it out. You may have already done it. If not, Carly's going to post a link to it. There it is. So that this will, again, help you follow along, take notes, whatever you want. Again, that's what I recommend. I'm also going to ask questions during the presentation, and I might ask you to raise your hand in response. I'm sure you're all Zoom experts at this point, but just in case somebody here hasn't used Zoom yet, you can raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon on your control panel. We're going to use the question window for you to ask questions. You can do so at any time during the presentation. The Q&A will be at the end of the presentation, but you can post your questions at any time. I'm going to, at some points, ask open-ended questions of you. I'm going to ask you to post your responses to my questions in the chat window. It makes it much easier for me to go through the Q&A quickly and rapidly if the questions are in the question window and answers are in the answer window or the chat window. Number 5, you can win. We're going to have a contest towards the end of the webinar based solely on content presented during the webinar. So stay tuned and you can win a free consultation, short but free consultation with me. When you leave, you're going to receive a brief survey. Please fill it out. We value your feedback. We use it to decide on new webinars, improve existing ones, and I review it all. So it's not a waste of time at all if you do provide that feedback. Now, let's test your hand-raising skill. Please raise your hand if you are here because business school, and specifically Wharton MBA, will launch you on the career trajectory of your dreams. Okay, great. Most of you are here for the right reasons and know how to use Zoom's hand-raising feature. So thank you very much. That's great. Okay. Oh, yes, I almost forgot. This is attendees' favorite announcement. We're having a special for webinar registrants, $100 off any order over $1,000. This offer ends on the 22nd, which is Saturday. So you have a few days. You can use this for a comprehensive package. You can use this for a multi-hour plan, 5 or 10 hours. And again, you can save $100. Before we start, I always like to learn a little bit about the friends that make up my audience. So can you please, in the chat window, tell me where you're located, city and state if you're in the United States, and city and country if you're outside the United States. Austin, Texas, okay. Anybody else? India? What time is it in India now? Denver, Colorado, Atlanta, Georgia. Must be, I guess it's 6:30 or so in India right now. Is that correct? Anybody else want to say where they're located? India, it's 5:30 a.m. Ouch. That's kind of early. Thank you for being here. Tokyo, Japan. Lapatkang Township in New Jersey. Okay. 9:05 a.m. That's a little bit more civilized. Toronto, Canada. Welcome. Okay, great. And now I'd like to know where you're at in the application process. Okay, so we're going to post a poll. And the question is, where are you at in the application process? Are you planning to apply round 1, round 2, round 3, or you're planning ahead for next year or later? And if you're planning to apply multiple rounds, then just choose the round where you're planning to submit most of your applications. Okay. And let's see, how are we doing here? We have 65% having voted. Can we get that up a little bit? 5, 4, 3. Again, the options are planning to apply round 1, round 2, round 3, or planning ahead for next year and later. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's end the polling and just share the results. So it's 56% for round 1, 38% round 2, and 0 round 3, and 6% later. Okay, so actually we have this evening's group is a much more round 1, round 2 oriented group than this morning's. This morning's had many more people planning ahead. Okay, next question. Okay, how committed are you to Wharton? How committed are you to applying to Wharton? And the options are definitely, probably, maybe, and doubt it, but I'd love you to convince me otherwise. Okay, the options again are definitely, probably, maybe, and doubt it, but I'd love you to convince me otherwise. And we're at 79% having voted. Fantastic. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The results are 84% definitely applying. Fantastic. Great. 11% probably, 5% maybe, and 0% in the doubt it category. Again, this is a very committed group, more committed than the morning's group. Okay, great. Do we share the results here? I'll share the results so you can see them for a moment. And then we're going to move on. The truth of the matter is, folks, that I turned down Wharton for the man I love and have been married to for almost 42 years. But many of you would turn down a lot to go to Wharton, and with good reason. Wharton provides an amazing breadth of educational options and career opportunity. Frankly, it's an embarrassment of riches. And I'm not sure if this is good or bad, but Wharton's mean GMAT average is mean GMAT is 732. And that's for the class that entered in 2019 per US News and Wharton's website. Now, some say Wharton is just about Wall Street. And I say that person knows nothing about Wharton. Wharton has a dizzying array of options and programs. Wharton Lauder, the 3-year joint MBA JD, customer analytics, innovation entrepreneurship, healthcare management, real estate, global programs, leadership development. It's all available at Wharton. Wharton is a finance powerhouse. That's true, but it is not only a finance powerhouse. It has a flexible curriculum that prepares its graduates for a broad spectrum of careers. And indeed, if you look at the US News specialty rankings, which on some level I think actually have more to them than the overall ranking, you'll see that it is in the top 10 for most of the categories that US News even ranks. It has a flexible curriculum that prepares its graduates for a broad spectrum of careers. It is a premier program with an impressive alumni network and placement record. And unlike some of its competitors who have acceptance rates of less than 15%, Wharton has a 23.1% acceptance rate per US News, and that was for the class that entered in 2019. And that slightly increased acceptance rate represents opportunity for qualified applicants. Now, the rest of the webinar is going to be devoted to a discussion of how to take advantage of that opportunity. So the plan is to go through the four-part framework and apply that framework to Wharton. You can use the strategy framework on other top programs too, but the tactics are going to be specifically oriented to Wharton's 2020-2021 application. I'm also going to issue various caveats and warnings during the webinar, and the first one's coming right now. You're not going to get in by waving a magic wand. A dab of makeup won't do it. And frankly, even spin, which some applicants love, won't do it. You need to submit a substantive application. And substance means competitive qualifications and an effective presentation of those qualifications. In other words, you need to demonstrate fit. Your overriding aim is to show that you belong at Wharton. You belong in Huntsman Hall. And now let's dive into the nitty-gritty. In the chat window, please. How do you intend to show that you belong at Wharton? I honestly don't know. Well, I hope you'll have a clearer idea at the end of the webinar. But most of you have given some thought to this before you came today, even to know that you want to go to Wharton. And most of you say that you're definitely applying to a Wharton and you're applying round one. So Julia says passion for data and using it to drive business decisions. That's definitely part of what Wharton will be looking for. Other people, what do you think is going to help you get in? I want to build a career in finance and ultimately be a general partner in an investment firm, and Wharton will help me do to that path. That's definitely part of it, Alfredo. Past diverse experience, career experience in healthcare, banking, and real estate. Very good. That's definitely going to help you, Maria. Leadership, involvement, and a unique perspective. Sartak. Okay, that's all part of it. You're welcome. Anybody else want to tell me how they're going to show Wharton they belong at Wharton? This is very interesting. None of you are mentioning academics, academic qualifications. You're all hitting on part of it. What I'm going to try and show you in the remainder of the presentation is that you need all 4 elements of this framework. Okay, so maybe you don't have any academic concerns and that's why you're not raising it, which is great. But the first thing you need, the first part of the framework, and one of the first things that Wharton admissions committees have spoken about at various AGAC conferences is academic preparedness. In my words, you need to demonstrate that you can handle the academics, the academic demands at Wharton. Okay, that's a ticket of entry. It's not enough to get you in, but without it, I don't think you'll be considered at all. Now, the easiest way to show that you can handle the work, you can handle the academics, is through your undergraduate transcripts and test scores, because you want to ideally be at or above the averages for accepted students for both your grades and test scores. But if you're not, what can you do about it? How can you convince Wharton to accept you with, let's start with below average grades? Well, first of all, realize that the average GPA on the US 4.0 scale is a 3.61. And if you're international, don't translate your GPA. You just give, unless you're asked to, give the GPA at your school as you normally talk about it. But if you are on the US scale and your GPA is under 3.61, first of all, realize that some students are admitted with a GPA below 3.61 because that's just the nature of an average. But the farther away you are below average, and if both your grades and test scores are below average, the less likely it is that you can effectively demonstrate you can do the work, you can handle those academics. So what do you do about a problematic GPA or undergrad grades? I'd suggest you listen to the podcast at accept.com/137, where I provided another framework, if you will, for mitigating the impact of low undergraduate grades. If your quant skills are weak, you're the proverbial poet, but your grades are good, consider something like mbamath.com or quant courses at a local college. Again, the name of the game here is to show Wharton that you can handle the academic demands of Wharton's MBA program. So what you could do, let's say at a local college or online extension course, is statistics for business, calculus if you have and remember the prerequisites, economics 1, accounting 1, any of those things will help to both improve your quant skills and show Wharton that you're preparing yourself for business school in a purposeful way and really ready for it and can handle it. Obviously, you want to get good grades in those classes. A high test score can also mitigate a low GPA somewhat, though it doesn't show exactly the same qualities. For the top 10, including Wharton, you ideally want to be at the 80th percentile in both quant and verbal. whether your grades are good or below average. Again, that's an ideal I'm providing for you. I'm not saying it's a requirement. It's not set in concrete. It's not cast in, it's not a line in the sand that you have to cross. But if you do have both an 80th percentile in quant and verbal, and you know, if you're 78 or 79, don't worry about it. This is, then check that box. If you're not sure whether to retake the GMAT, please take a look at these two resources. You can jot down the URLs for yourself or just wait for our emails, which will also give it to you. Okay. In terms of fulfilling demands of this first part of the framework, somehow, some way, you need to show that you can do the work effectively and not struggle with either basic math or communications. That's part one of the framework. Part two, have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from Wharton and how you intend to use it. Professional direction is the second thing that the Wharton Admissions Committee said Wharton is looking for in the application. So academic preparedness, professional direction. In my terms, again, show that you can do the work, have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from Wharton. And indeed, Wharton asks in his essay question, what do you hope to gain professionally from a Wharton MBA? The question is all about professional direction. And a classic MBA or post-MBA goal is function. What do you want to do after your MBA? And industry. In what industry do you want to do it? In the words of Blair Mannix, Wharton's admissions director, on her December Admissions Straight Talk interview, which by the way, I would really recommend that you listen to that. She said at the time, we want students to do self-reflection on why they want this degree. We want students to explore the pivot moment when they decided they wanted to do this and unpack the talent and treasure they can bring to the MBA. Spend the time and really think about the top 3 things you'll get out of the program. Now, if you think about the essay questions, you'll see that they very much reflect this paragraph. So Wharton is interested in the realism and feasibility of your goals, but that doesn't mean that you have to choose a safe path, because they also want to admit people of impact. And if you're just always choosing the safe path, you're not going to be that person of impact. You have to be willing also to take some risks. The key point is that your application as a whole must allow the admissions committee to see how your previous education and experience, when combined with the Wharton MBA, will allow you to achieve what you want to achieve. Remember, schools want to know that they can help you succeed. And to, again, I might be beating a dead horse here, but to labor this point a little bit more, Mary Ellen Riley, Wharton's Deputy Vice Dean of MBA Admissions, Financial Aid, and Career Management, wrote in a blog post shortly after she was appointed to this post, our hope is to give applicants ample space to more fully explain their aspirations, goals, and how Wharton fits into those. My main point is make it easy for the admissions committee to connect the dots between your past, Wharton, and your desired future. So that's part 2 of the framework. Part 3 is coming up. Show that you share Wharton's values and have the character it seeks. Now, Wharton is not as clear as some other MBA programs about what it's looking for in applicants or about its key values. But I think I've listed 4 key values right here. And they are innovation, data, community, and leadership. And the 5th problem, one which somehow didn't make it into the slide, is global. All that innovation, combined with Wharton's incredible commitment to assisting its students in making the most of their Wharton MBA experience, have led it to having one of the most flexible and rich curricula out there. Each cluster has its own advising support network to help you make the most of your Wharton experience. Whether that's the academics, the leadership training, career, and student life options, they're all covered in this advising support network. And it's one of the few programs with a Dean of Innovation, and the team-based discussion, which we'll discuss later, was the result of an initiative from the Innovation Office. Now, this commitment to supporting its students also leads to relevancy for you. How are you going to take advantage of flexibility in Wharton's curriculum? Because if you are admitted, you're going to have the ability to waive out of classes if you already had them. The school has 19 majors, and students can, in addition, design their own. So essentially, there's an infinite number of majors. The program offers 200 plus electives in 10 departments, plus the option to take up to 4 classes in other schools at the University of Pennsylvania. And 5.5 of the 9 credits in its required core curriculum are flexible. And in other words, even there are options. So you in your probably more in your interview are going to need to show that you can take advantage of all that flexibility and that relevance and that innovativeness. Now, Wharton is also committed to analytical rigor and use of data. Data may be dull or dramatic, but it animates all discussion at Wharton. And I've talked to many Wharton students, Wharton grads, and they're constantly looking for evidence, usually data evidence, that supports any assertion you make in conversation. So for you as an applicant, think about times when you have used analytics, analysis, or data and resulting insight to solve a problem or improve a process, because that's what you're going to want to highlight in your resume or your activity history. And you may even ask your recommender to mention it in their recommendation. So let's get to global now. Wharton is global, both in its student body, alumni network, and educational opportunities. It has a very, very large global network, 99,000 alumni in 153 countries, organized into 77 alumni clubs on 6 continents. Its international educational opportunities can be short and intensive or extensive and immersive. You have at Wharton the dual degree programs and interdisciplinary programs like the MBA, MA at Wharton Lauder, or the joint program between Whartons and the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins, or the MBA, MPAID with Harvard Kennedy. Wharton also partners with 18 schools in 15 different countries for exchange programs, and there are co-curricular opportunities also, conferences, international volunteer programs, and global career treks. What does all this mean to you as an applicant? It may make your tongue water, but that's not what I'm talking about here. If you have international work experience, if you have extensive personal travel, if you have a multi-founder experience, you're going to want to bring it out through your application, whether it's the essay questions, the optional question, your resume, or a letter of recommendation or interview. I'd prefer that you bring it out before the interview, though, because you want to get to the interview and it will make you more attractive. Also realize that Wharton is not just a school, it's a community, and it's a student-led culture. This is not a sit-back, spoon-fed student body at all. Whoops, I missed that slide. Between learning teams and clusters, it requires participation, a strong emphasis on teamwork. Again, at the AGAC conference, I was struck by the administration's attempts to respond to student input, to customize the student experience. I've mentioned that above, and to help the students make the most of Wharton. Think about times when you were engaged with your community. When did you initiate and innovate? How can you show your teamwork skills? And, that's, again, all these things I'm telling you about at Wharton, I'm not telling them to you to sell you on the school. The fact that you're here basically shows that you are sold, not to mention the responses to the survey questions I asked at the beginning. They imply something to you as an applicant. You want to think about the times when you were engaged with your community. When did you initiate and innovate? And actually, the third point in that admissions committee presentation that I mentioned about academic preparedness, career direction, the third element in their triad was community. And that is not only what have you contributed in the past to your community, but what can you add to Wharton's community? And that's, of course, this year's second required essay question. And I'd say that when you're talking about your experiences, your activity history, it's more about a depth of experience or quality of experience than quantity. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to have a long laundry list of irrelevant awards. Much better to have a short list of really, really meaningful ones. And then teamwork is kind of the flip side of leadership at Wharton. Wharton has a very well-developed leadership training program. Be prepared to show yourself as an applicant, as someone who has led, who can take advantage of Wharton's leadership training. That's what they're looking for. Now here comes one of my warnings. Sometimes at this point in either in a webinar or when we're advising applicants, it's like, oh, can't I just write about leadership, community, teamwork, global data? No, you can't, because mouthing platitudes, spitting back websites, even spitting back this webinar is not the same as actually showing you share the values and have these qualities and attributes. The former, the spitback, the mouthing stuff, frankly, that's just gift wrap. It hides what's inside, in this case of you. And you know what happens to gift wrap? It gets thrown out. Spamming them with phrases from their website or mantra like repetition of the cluster system and innovation simply will not do it. It's kind of like magic and makeup. But what does work are examples in your essays, bullet points in your resume, what your recommenders write in their letters, responses to interview questions. It should in total show that you both have what Wharton is looking for and can benefit from what Wharton offers, and that you share with Wharton a belief about what's important. To me, as I've said before, Wharton is about a breadth of opportunity and a breadth of experience, and has been for a very long time. Yes, blue chip experience is valued, but blue chip experience plus small business and entrepreneurship, that's gold. Multiple languages, working in different parts of the world, making the time for professional and personal commitments. All that enhances your attractiveness at Wharton. And of course, rigorous database analysis. Now, what I'd like you to do at this point is write down for yourself, sometimes just a couple of brief notes. You can use the worksheet or you can use the back of an envelope. Sometimes when you have demonstrated some of these qualities, okay, we're talking about leadership, teamwork or commitment to community, global, use of data, and innovation, right? Just make some short notes for yourself. This is for yourself. You don't have to put it in the chat window or the question window. This is for yourself. Okay. And when you use examples like that, like the ones you're jotting down, you don't have to spit back the phrases at all. You simply demonstrate that you share the qualities. Another warning, if you focus on rankings and brand, you're going to end up obscuring this fit aspect of admissions. And what's going to happen is that you'll blend in. You want to stand out in a positive way. You want to show that you have something that you have the distinctive experience and perspective that will allow you to contribute to the Wharton community. Wharton has lots of applicants, and even though, yes, it does have a somewhat higher acceptance rate than some of its competition, it still can be really choosy. At its current application volume, it rejects slightly more than 4 out of every 5 applicants. And this leads to my last strategic point and the last part of the framework. Demonstrate they'll be able to contribute to your cohort, your learning team, your cluster, and the greater Wharton community, and ultimately make the school proud. Now, again, going back to various conversations that I've had or presentations I've heard from Wharton's admissions committee, their key question when they're evaluating your application is, what can this person add to Wharton's community? And that is part of essay question 2, but it should be really addressed elsewhere in the application and multiple places in the application, because what you want to do is reveal that you are a person of impact with a habit of contribution, a tendency to make a difference. And that should come through your essay, your resume, your activity history, your interview, your resume, really everything. So what I'd like you to do now in the chat window is tell me about some times when you have made a difference, and I'm going to comment on the examples that you provide, okay? Tell me about times where you have made a difference in the chat window. I'll give you a couple of examples right now. And this is something I made up. As president of a fraternity or sorority that raised, when I was president, the fraternity or sorority raised more money for our favorite charity than that organization had ever raised. That's one example. Or since taking over my father-in-law's business, the business has increased sales by 20% each of the last 3 years. All right, so let's see what those are my suggestions. Let's see what some of you have come up with. Helped launch the SBA PPP program for my bank to help out our clients pay their employees. Excellent. I'd like to know, Sonia, how many businesses took advantage of the PPP program through your bank? How much money was lent out? That would be some specific detail that would, I think, magnify the impact you had. I've been a crisis counselor online with CTL for almost 3 years now, and I've prevented 200 plus suicide self-harm cases. Excellent. Excellent. Took leadership of KPMG US's tangible asset, new hire and intern training program, much neglected, but made it interactive and impactful. Launched a community-centric nonprofit to develop bike lanes in Atlanta. Okay, so in terms of the KPMG program, I'd like to know how you measure the fact that it became more impactful. Again, data, okay? And when you talk about the bike lanes, how much money did you raise for the nonprofit? How many bike lanes, how many miles of bike lanes are there now in Atlanta? Okay. Or Julia, I tripped the number of engaged, I assume that's tripled, the number of engaged users on my product reaching our BHAG target, reaching historic growth rates. I'm not quite sure what that acronym is, and I'm assuming it's tripled. That's very good. Okay, great. That's good description. Designed a new product for an insurance company that increased revenue for the company by 20%. Excellent. You might add if you were working on a team, or what was your role on that team and how many people were on the team. That might be good. Yeah, I was pretty sure it was tripled. Okay. As president of a major student club, created a new initiative for our annual charity dinner to partner with UNICEF to raise $1,000 for Ebola emergency funds during the 2014 crisis. Very good. How many people were in your club? Okay, how many people were working with you on that? Okay, this is from Sapayan. I don't know if this counts, but I took over a Sterling Toastmasters Club and turned it around to be a distinguished one, a performance which impressed the higher up so much that I was offered the area director position, where I currently oversee 5 clubs. That is very good. I would like to know what again, how many members did it have? What were signs that it was struggling, and what is the evidence that it is now distinguished or thriving? Obviously, the fact that you were then appointed director says a lot, but I'd like to know a little bit of those details too. Also excellent. Very, very good. So let's move on, but your examples are great. Let's also touch on work experience specifically for a little bit. Some of you gave work examples and some of you gave non-work examples. And that's fine. It's great that it was in both arenas. The average amount of work experience at Wharton is 5 years, but the range is 0 to 16 years. Now, obviously, there are millions of people with 0 to 16 years of work experience, or even an average of 5 years of work experience. So while this gives you an idea of how much work experience Wharton is looking for, or does best at Wharton, what's really going to make the difference is the quality of that work experience. And qualitatively competitive work experience at Wharton shows the leadership, contribution, initiative, and innovation that Wharton values, or at least some of those qualities. And this is the big important and, above average progression on the job. Now, somebody mentioned here a very big, it was a Toastmasters, right? Salpayan mentioned that he became area director for 5 clubs. That would be a very significant promotion. You didn't give a time range, but I'm pretty sure it was a short period of time. Now, that's the substance of showing you can contribute, that qualitatively competitive work experience and similar impact off the job, right? Showing those qualities that Wharton is looking for. But there's also the matter of effectively conveying that substance. And that was kind of what I was trying to get at in some of my suggestions to you, or my questions to you. Let's do a little thought experiment that I think will show you how to effectively convey the distinctiveness of your experience, as well as your impact, a little bit more effectively. So Carly, can you please post the next poll? And you can choose more than one option with this poll. The question is, how many of you work in finance or consulting, or have done so since college, have traveled outside your home country, have volunteered in college or since, or none of the above? Okay. Again, the options are, how many of you have, well, that's the question, worked in finance or consulting since college, have traveled outside your home country in college or since, have volunteered in college or since. And the fourth option is none of the above. Okay, with 80% having voted, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We can close the poll and share the results. So 75% work in finance or consulting. 85% of you have traveled outside your home country. 95% have volunteered in college or since, and the none of the above just isn't relevant. Okay, all of you have done at least one of those things, and most of you have done multiple. Some of you have done all 3. Okay, great. So the next one is, how many of you work for a money management firm providing IT support? Again, you can choose multiples here. How many of you have consulted for pharmaceutical companies exploring entry to new markets in South America? How many of you have shadowed a special needs child at your place of worship, or none of the above? Okay. Answers are just coming in. The options one more time are work for a money management firm providing IT support, have consulted for pharmaceutical companies exploring entry to new markets in South America, have shadowed a special needs child at your place of worship, or none of the above. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Close the poll with 80% having voted. And we're also sharing the results. So none of you have done the IT support thing. None of you have consulted for pharmaceutical firms. 5% have shadowed a special needs child, and 95%, none of the above applied. All right, in the chat window, please. What is the difference between the two sets of questions? Angel, right? Specificity, general versus specific. Exactly. The first set were very general questions, and most of you could answer them and fit in. The specific questions, it was most of you couldn't identify with, right? Second one is much more personal, much more individual. You're right, Samyak. And what happens when we talk in specific terms as opposed to general terms? Anyway, it's more interesting. That's true. You narrow the scope. Good. More to contribute. I'm not sure. More relatable, more believable. That's true. You start to distinguish yourselves one from the other. You individuate. More distinctive. That's the point I'm driving at here. And if you think about it, when we posted the first set of questions or the first results, almost all of you could answer them, and nobody was in the none of the above category. But if that's what happens when I talk in general terms. But if I go and I talk about the specific questions, all of a sudden there was only one person who fit, and even only one option. So the implication for you here is that specifics differentiate. You don't have to swim the English Channel. You don't have to climb Mount Everest. You just have to talk about what you have accomplished in specific terms, and you will naturally stand out. Specifics will reveal you as the unique individual you truly are. So when you describe what you do, are you going to say that you're an engineer, or are you going to say that you are a transportation engineer, or a civil engineer, or a biomedical engineer? Are you a consultant, or a healthcare consultant, or a forensic consultant, or a strategy consultant? Did you volunteer, or did you found a new organization to address a specific need in your community, however you define your community? Or did you take care of a special needs child at your place of worship? Now, why is distinctive contribution so important? Because admissions at elite programs is a two-step process. The first part is evaluation, determining who is qualified, and top programs always turn away students whom they know can do the work. Remember, that was the first part of the framework and the first part of Wharton's triad. But the second part of the process is selection. And that means crafting a class, and I'm quoting from an old article that was written actually by Stanford's former head of admission. It was a GMAC News article. Crafting a class determining which candidates to admit among those evaluated as highly qualified. And they're going to admit those people who will thrive and add to the community, those who will give as they take, those who will benefit themselves and the Wharton community as a whole, those who have something to contribute. So that is a very subjective kind of criterion. It was quite interesting to me at the most recent AGAC conference, which was virtual. They had a workshop where several admissions consultants and several admissions directors were asked to evaluate 3 applicant profiles. And we were told that one was an admit, one was a reject, and one was a wait list. And we had to, afterwards we made our choices, and then we were discussing the choices. So it was an interesting discussion, but one of the interesting things that came out was that the emphasis that the admissions committee members put on knowing who is being admitted, what is the makeup of the class. That's that selection part, crafting a class. That's really, really important. The implication for you, as a candidate, I'm not telling you this to frustrate you because obviously you have no control over it, but you should be aware that the admissions committee has no reason to admit someone without something distinctive to contribute and authentic, I might add. There's no benefit to accepting someone lacking a history of leadership and growth in multiple arenas and contribution. And remember Wharton's focus on breadth and a record of past impact and contribution. So that's the part about conveying your qualifications, a little bit about it at least. Now let's review the 4 strategic steps you need to think about before and while putting your application together. And this is that 4-part framework. 1, demonstrate you can do the in-class work and excel. 2, have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from Wharton and how you intend to use it. 3, show that you share Wharton's values and meet its criteria. And 4, demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute to your team, your cohort, Wharton's community, and ultimately make the school proud. Now, let's look at the specific elements of the Wharton application. I already touched briefly on the grades and transcripts. Let's look at other elements. Let's start with a job and activity history. Now, Wharton wants a 1-page resume in PDF, and it must be under 10 megabytes in size, so no pictures, no fancy graphics. For Wharton's job history, it's pretty much the facts, nothing but the facts. There's little room to elaborate on motivations, lessons learned, or significant experiences. So that means that you must make the most of the 1-page resume to show impact and contribution, and to concretize that by quantifying that impact whenever possible. And think back to the exercise we did a minute ago. Your activity history should also show that you belong at an institution that is proud of its participatory culture and teamwork. Focus on, when you're working on your resume or your activity history, don't just list responsibilities or what you did. Focus on your achievements. You can say managed XYZ to do ABC, right? That should led a team of 5 that did this, that had this result. You can say what you did in a bullet point, but always lead to a result, an impact, and achievement. Now, Wharton also asks in its form, how many employees do you supervise? It's about 100 words. Obviously, you don't have a lot, 500 characters, 100 words. You have to provide a very succinct, straightforward answer. But even here, try to show impact in your response or reveal challenges you faced. So it could have been, led cross-functional team or international team or team with, remote workers aren't so unusual these days. But you could say lead with X workers across 8 times, 8 workers across 8 time zones, something along those lines. To show that it wasn't just a bunch of people sitting in a meeting room. Or perhaps led my team in transitioning from a work at the office to a work from home environment and accomplished whatever you accomplished. You'll also have about 500 characters to say why you left a particular position. The best reason is that you went to a new position for a promotion and more responsibility, or a new company. Now, the essays at Wharton, you have 2 required essays, but you see the word limits there, and 1 optional. The essay should complement the other elements of the application, answer the questions posed, and reveal something distinctive and interesting about you. They are great places to show fit, to reveal some of the qualities that Wharton values, and to show the professional and community elements that the admissions committee is looking for. So let's dive into the questions. Number 1, what do you hope to gain professionally from the Wharton MBA? This is, like straight professional direction. Why do you want a Wharton MBA, right? It's that the second part of the accepted framework, as well as the triad that the admissions committee gave us at AGAC. Now, it's a broader goals question. It's not just about that first position after the MBA, but about greater aims. And in answering, I think the first thing you have to do is just get ready, get set, think. What are you trying to achieve? Why do you want this MBA? How do you hope to achieve what you want to achieve? And how does the Wharton program, career placement, and community, both your classmates and alumni, fit into the realization of those dreams? You're going to need a very focused response to the question to present your professional goals for your MBA, and then how Wharton will be the vehicle for their achievement. So first of all, think about the differentiators we've discussed. Don't spit back a list of Wharton's programs, but do thoughtfully tie the most important elements of the Wharton MBA program to the achievement of your goals. Again, and I'm going to quote the admissions committee at AGAC recently, that they want to get a feel for why Wharton is the right place for you, but they don't want you to regurgitate the website or the club that you intend to join. Just connect thoughtfully what the school offers to what you want to achieve. I would encourage you to think about Wharton's career strengths, its curriculum, including classes, professors, and programs that support your goals, the extracurricular activities that support your goals, clubs, events, treks, competitions. And they're going to be, you're probably going to have more to write about than you have room for. So throw out anything that doesn't relate to these points. And if your essay is still too long, focus on the most important goals and most important elements of Wharton's program to help you achieve them. Now, essay 2, taking into consideration your background, personal, professional, and/or academic. How do you plan to make specific, meaningful contributions to the Wharton community? Again, if essay 1 is about what you can get out of Wharton, essay 2 is about what you're going to give to Wharton. And this question directly relates to the community element that the Wharton Admissions Committee is looking for. So what would you like to contribute or create? What impact would you like to have? I think the first thing you need to do is see what there is, and also try to connect with current students. Would you start a new initiative at Wharton, something that reflects your interest and that they don't have? Would you grow something that has stagnated or is perhaps at Wharton on its website only, because those things do exist? What about adding your creative experience and perspective to an ongoing project, club, or event? And how has something that you have done in the past shown that you have the ability to do so, and also highlights your teamwork skills and your desire to contribute to your community? A possible structure for this essay, which admittedly is pretty short, is start with the influential experience, tell succinctly its story, highlight your impact, and then discuss how it will enable you to contribute at Wharton. That's one possible structure. Another, start with the way you intend to contribute and perhaps draw a picture in words of what success would look like for you. And then bring the essay back to elements in your background that prepared you to contribute in this way. So Wharton also has an optional question. Please use this space to share any additional information about yourself that cannot be found elsewhere in your application and that you would like to share with the admissions committee. The space can also be used to address any extenuating circumstances. Now, the Wharton emphasizes that this is truly optional, and it is, but it's also a wide open question, an opportunity for you to share something that you would like Wharton to know that isn't found elsewhere in your application. So you can use this to provide context for a bad semester or other negative or questionable element in your application. You can use it to address a non-traditional choice of recommenders. You may also use the optional to discuss challenges overcome that didn't zap your GPA. You can use it to discuss some unusual travel experiences that, again, aren't found elsewhere in your application. But what it shouldn't be is a waste of the reader's time. Don't use it to repeat material found elsewhere. Wharton also has a reapplicant question. Please use this space to share with the admissions committee how you have reflected and grown since your previous application and discuss any relevant updates to your candidacy. And that would be changes in your professional life, etc. This is something that any reapplicant has to address somewhere in the application. It's just critical. So make sure that you're prepared to respond to it. They want to know that you're new and improved, that you're better than what they rejected last year, because they're very unlikely to admit you this year without some sign of improvement. In order to respond to these questions, do your homework about Wharton. Each one requires an answer that is specific to the Wharton program and application. So read the brochures, comb the website, speak to current students and recent alumni. Do your homework. Okay, recommender. There are 2 criteria for your recommenders and 2 recommendations for Wharton. You want to ask 2 people who have supervised you closely and know you well. And Wharton prefers that the recommendations be from supervisors, current or former. About 3-4 years ago, probably, Wharton changed pretty dramatically what it is requesting of recommenders. But it is clear that it wants an examples in response to each of its 2 open-ended questions. And then there's going to be a list where the recommender is asked to choose 3 character traits that really define you in the recommender's eyes. At AGAC, the admissions committee representative emphasized that recommendation is really a misnomer. They're really looking for perspective and insight into you as an applicant from someone who knows you well and professionally. So in that respect, the Wharton recommendation isn't really a recommendation. It's not really evaluative. Let's move on to the interview. Wharton will ask you to have both a short individual interview that's typically preceded by its famed team-based discussion. The interview is personal conversation. It's not intimidating. It's typically quite brief. They may ask you for feedback on the TBD, assuming that you just came out of it. And you should prepare questions to ask of the interviewer. The team-based discussion, or TBD, has been 35 minutes in length. It's a group interview, mini-team project to come up with a proposal for a specific idea. Quote, as a team, you will work together to achieve a tangible outcome. I strongly suspect that it will be all entirely remote this year and on Zoom since nobody's traveling. But we've had mock TBDs for several years now, and they've all been remote, and it can be done. A successful TBD is about helping the group provide a successful response to the prompt. I've sat in on several of our mock TBDs, and it was really quite clear that the most effective participants encouraged others, contributed when they had something constructive to say, listened well, acknowledged others' point of view and contributions, and respectfully disputed when necessary with facts. They were the opposites of people who, hog airtime or show off. Their goal was the team's success, it wasn't about them strutting their stuff. So we do offer mock Wharton TBDs when the time comes, just keep us in mind. Now let's go back to your goal in submitting an application to Wharton. Show that you belong at Wharton. And now we're going to have that little contest I promised you at the beginning. I shouldn't actually say it's so little, it's a great contest. People have really enjoyed it and given very positive feedback about the benefits of it. So what it means is I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask you to respond in the chat window, and the first 3 people to get the answer right to the next question are going to get a free 15-minute consultation with me. Okay? The question is, what is part 1 of the framework that will help you show you belong at Wharton? Okay, you did much better. You doing much better than the group this morning. Okay, Maria, academic preparedness, academic ability, that's Sartak, and Abhishek, academic preparedness. Very well done. Okay, congratulations. I look forward to speaking to each of you. We will be in touch. Carly, do you have it? You got it. Okay, great. Wonderful. Now, let's go through that 4-part framework one last time. Part 1. Present the academic credentials that show you can do the work and excel. 2, have a goal that requires a Wharton MBA. 3, show that you meet Wharton's criteria and share its values. 4, demonstrate that you will be able to contribute distinctively to class discussions and teamwork with the school's community, and ultimately make the school proud to have admitted you. Final caveat and warning from me. The admissions committee readers are sharp, intelligent professionals. Every so often I hear applicants somewhat dismissively speak about them as bureaucrats. Don't make that mistake. They are sharp, intelligent professionals. Don't try to fake, don't try to trick or fool. The best presentation of you is an authentic reflection of your achievements and dreams, keeping in mind the 4-part framework that will make Wharton want you. Now we're going to head into the Q&A in a minute, and I'll be joined by Natalie Greenblatt Epstein also at that time. But at this point, I have a question for you. What is the most valuable piece of advice, information, or insight that you found in this webinar so far? And that's in the chat window, please. What is the most valuable piece of advice, information, or insight that you have so far gleaned from this webinar? Showing that I possess the qualities that Wharton is looking for in terms of fit, being really specific about what field you work in and who you are. Great. How to craft the resume. Wonderful. Too many points to list, really. I'm flattered, Maria. Thank you. Data focus for Wharton, discussing Wharton's values, Don't translate the GPA and be specific. Good. Again, if you're asked to translate the GPA, you got to, but otherwise don't do it. CV recommendations. Good. Knowing that I don't have to swim across the English Channel to stand out. Great. That must be a tremendous relief. It's pretty cold out there. Okay. Very, very good. Thank you. And one more, maybe this is not relevant to the webinar, but my entire reason to start thinking very seriously for Wharton was what you have always repeated, distinctive quality that Wharton seeks, that sets it apart, its breadth of or diversity of experience. Good. That's very good. Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Realize that a successful Wharton MBA application requires all 4 elements of that 4-part framework that I've been kind of beating you over the head with. Not just 1, not just 3 out of the 4, because to get accepted, you need to show that you both belong at Wharton, that's parts 1 through 3, and stand out in the applicant pool. That's part 4. This framework gives you the what of a successful application. And I believe somebody at the beginning said they didn't really have any idea what Wharton wants in an application. I hope that person feels differently now, as do the rest of you. But now you need to apply what you've learned to your individual circumstances. That's the how. That's the how do you complete this process. And no book, webinar, or download can provide that how, because books, webinars, and downloads are general and for the many. But an experienced MBA admissions consultant can help you with implementing this framework and guide you so that you present all 4 elements. You need to show that you both belong at Wharton, or whatever MBA programs you are aiming for, and stand out in the applicant pool. You will benefit from a knowledgeable, supportive mentor as you create an application that as a whole spotlights your strengths and mitigates your weaknesses. An application that really accomplishes everything we've discussed here today. Now, friends, here's what you can do when you use Accepted. You can access expertise and experience. You can reduce your stress, save time, optimize your school choice and application, and mitigate weaknesses. And some may say that Accepted is expensive, and we're definitely not a cheap service because of the quality of our staff. However, there are also expensive risks associated with not using Accepted. Reapplication can easily cost a few $1,000s. One additional year of pre-MBA earnings can cost you in the 5 figures in dollars. And there's the potential that you could have gotten into a better program with lifelong higher earnings and network. And again, that could cost you in 5 or 6 figures. Think of the woman who almost didn't even apply to Wharton and then applied and got in, both to Wharton and MIT Sloan. Now, every year we work with applicants who talked to us a year earlier and decided after taking the do-it-yourself approach and getting rejected that they would work with us when they were a reapplicant. We're happy to work with them. We love working with reapplicants, whether they talked to us a year earlier or not. But they would have been better off working with us initially, and so would you. Enough from me. What do accepted clients say? I'm going to abbreviate this a little bit, but it's on the screen for you. I found out that I got into Stanford and Wharton offered me a grant. One last thought I had regarding the Wharton grant. Your help went beyond helping me obtain admission to actually increasing my chances, I believe, of getting offered a merit-based fellowship. Talk about unexpected ROI. Or the second one, I'm really happy. I would like to thank Jennifer once again for her wonderful guidance without which this, acceptance of Wharton and Booth, would not have been possible. Or the last one, I've been admitted to HBS. So far, I have received admission letters from Harvard, Wharton, Duke, Stern, Cornell, Johnson, Darden, and UCLA. I would have never made it this far without your professional and timely help. Different people, different challenges, and different fears. The same result at Wharton. Now, I can't say that all our clients are accepted to Wharton, but we'd sure like to use the same expert, insightful, individual advising that we use with these clients, the clients you just heard from, to help you get the same results. Acceptance to Wharton. Now, here's what I'd like you to do. Visit accept.com/MBA/services. Choose the service that's right for you, get the guidance you need, and apply confidently and effectively. And right now, as I told you at the beginning, you can save through Saturday $100 on any order over $1,000. The coupon code is Wharton for me, and the page to go is accept.com/MBA-services. Again, that's through Saturday. There'll be no more discounts prior to round 1. I also want to mention and I just mentioned it. Now it's time for our Q&A, and I want to welcome Natalie Greenblatt Epstein. Natalie served as Director of Admissions at 3 top MBA programs before joining Accepted. Her clients adore her, and I love the fact that she is here with me tonight. So let's make sure that Natalie's unmuted. Natalie, are you
I
unmuted?
am unmuted.
All right, great.
And
Thank you.
thank you, Linda. And welcome, participants. It's nice to have you here with us tonight.
Absolutely. Okay. So we have some questions here, and I'm going to start plowing through them. So Sartak asks, if you have a 3.5 undergrad GPA and a 3.9 master's GPA, would they look at an overall average? You want to take that, Natalie?
Yeah, so typically a school will not average a grad school academic record and an undergraduate academic record, but they will certainly see what you've been able to do in graduate school that you were not able perhaps to do as an undergrad. But a 3.5 record is pretty good for an
Exactly. I
undergraduate.
wouldn't worry about that at all.
And in terms of academic record and GPA like means nothing. It's in a vacuum, and really it's about the academic record. So what classes did you take? What course loads did you carry? What grades did you receive? What kind of school did you go to? What kind of major did you have? What did you do outside of classroom? So all of those elements get taken into account when AdComs are looking at the academic record. The reason they report a GPA is that it's a very convenient way for you as an applicant to look at what aggregates might be and averages might be. And also it's very easy for ranking agencies to be able to come up with some sort of formula that ranks the school.
Right, right. Yeah, it is very convenient. I was using it earlier in the presentation, but the academic record, as Natalie said, is going to be looked at in a much more in-depth, profound way than just citing the number. And I wouldn't worry at all about a 3.5, especially if there was an upward trend to it. Okay. All right. Let's see. Now, I have a concern about work experience. I have 4 years of work experience under me, but I've always worked in large companies, Intel and Apple. Due to their nature, vertical progress is really slow. I do have one promotion under my belt, but nothing really that screams leadership, and don't really see one coming by the time I apply. Given that my field of work is as far removed from finance consulting as it can get, electrical engineer, how big of a problem is this? Can this be in any ways to circumvent this? Natalie, you want to start with that one?
Sure. So I don't think leadership is defined by formal promotions.
Right.
It's really about the kind of initiative you take and the people that you inspire. So, Linda talked earlier about impact. That's really important. That's about, how you have changed something within the organization. So as an engineer, you are improving things within the organization. Now, if you're working with other people and you have found a problem and you have solved the problem and you have inspired these other people to go with your idea to solve the problem, to me, that's leadership. Okay, it's really about who you are, what you are doing with solving the big problems or even the little problems, showing the impact. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a title.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a promotion. Promotions are nice. There are advantages to working for name brand organizations as well. To some extent, if you're working with a smaller organization, and the AdCom doesn't know this organization, well, then you have to help them understand what the organization is and does. They know what Apple does. They know what Intel does. So
They also
you
know it's
have
hard to get a
that
job
under your
in
belt.
these two. They know it's
Yeah,
hard to get a job.
and
in
they
these two
do their
companies.
own screening.
Right.
So, you've already been pre-screened for them.
The other thing is, I completely agree with Natalie that title isn't really that doesn't equate to leadership. You can show leadership without getting a promotion, just by assuming greater responsibility, having people reporting to you, or taking leadership roles off the job. It could be on a sports team. It could be in a not-for-profit. It could be in a religious organization, ethnic organization. The election this year. There's so many different ways that you can show leadership. I wouldn't obsess about the lack of promotions or the only one promotion on your job. I would just make the most of whatever you have. And the main qualification for a leader is followers. If you have people you've influenced and who've followed your direction, you're a leader. Okay.
And, can I make one other point about
go ahead.
this too?
By all means.
Because you said you're as far as you can be from finance as well as leadership. Well, I mean, there are certainly quantitative and analytical skills that really prepare you for business school by being an engineer. So I would not worry about that. Engineers do very well in business school. And it's not going to be something that detracts from your candidacy. It's a plus. You have quantitative skills, you have the analytical skills.
Okay. Let's see. This is from Alfredo. Does Wharton give a lot of value to the CFA?
Do you want me to take that one too?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm getting tired.
Yeah. So
they're probably tired of hearing from me.
No, never. So, I mean, there are a lot of people applying to Wharton who have CFAs. So when Linda had you go through that exercise in terms of, differentiating factors, it's not going to be a huge differentiating factor for you at Wharton. However, again, there's a level of expertise that you are demonstrating by going through, the CFA 1, 2, 3, or, all of the above. So I just feel like you definitely want to add it. If you have it, that's great. If you don't have it, we can talk about that offline. And it's just not a huge differentiator at a school like Wharton, but it's a plus anywhere.
It's a plus. I also think if you are someone who, let's say, struggled with undergrad grades and you want to show that you now know how to study, passing all 3 levels of the CFA is one way to show that you figured out how to study.
That's a great point, Linda.
Yeah, so that would be another, but I don't know if that is your issue. Okay, so let's see what other questions we have here. Maria is asking about the specifics about acceptance to the EMBA. I think the focus of today's webinar was definitely the regular MBA. In terms of some specifics that are specific to the EMBA, one would be how do you intend to manage demands of working full-time and attending Wharton part-time? That's something that, the Wharton EMBA admissions committee is going to be definitely interested in. And Carly, I did interview the Wharton EMBA committee, I think a couple of years ago. Maybe if you can find that on AST, on Admission Straight Talk, maybe just post the link for it. That would be one big difference in terms of the EMBA as opposed to the full-time MBA program. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, they want to see that you are supported within your organization to take time away from your day-to-day activities, that you have a system in place that would enable the organization to continue when you're on your weekends, and also, well, I don't know what's going to happen with COVID. They used to do like these weeks away and also these weeks on campus, both in San Francisco and in Philadelphia. So it's just important for them to know that your subordinates, your peers, and your supervisor, who has to formally say this in a letter of recommendation, support you. Otherwise, it's just important for them to know why you're interested in an MBA at this point in your career.
Right.
How is it going to help you move forward in your career?
Okay. Excellent points. Thank you, Natalie. Now, Julia asks, how would you recommend incorporating past experiences and accomplishments into Wharton's essays versus the approach for GSB, Wharton, which has much more open-ended questions? That's what we work on with our clients all the time, Julia. That's, I don't know. I'm not sure this is the forum for doing it, because it's so dependent upon your experience that I'm not sure we can give guidelines in this particular forum. Natalie, would you agree with that? Do you want to take a stab at it, or is this something where really have to talk to Julia?
I think we would have to talk about your specifics.
Yeah.
But I mean, Linda went through this already in the webinar. I mean, the first essay that Wharton asks is what you will gain from a Wharton MBA. So this is all about your take. And the second essay is all about what you will give. And you can talk about your accomplishments in that second essay in the context of using the skills and experiences that you've gained to be able to contribute that to your peers at Wharton. Why would they be better off by having you as a member of the class? So this isn't the GSB webinar, so I'm not going to really comment on GSB.
I did give one a few weeks, I think in July, there's a Stanford GSB webinar. Go ahead, Natalie, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, that's fine. But I mean, the questions are very different, and I don't think they're very open-ended at all.
Well,
not for GSB.
Stanford's first one is, what matters to you most and why? I mean, that's pretty open.
Yeah,
why Stanford is not.
Right. And yeah, but it's also, those are questions that you can use in terms of a skeleton that would help you build for other schools. I don't think you can cut and paste any of these questions into another application. You really need to think about them very creatively and in terms of what you can offer. But it's certainly, I mean, Harvard definitely has the most open-ended question.
Yeah. And
probably, like the Stanford What Matters Most, a really difficult one to write.
Yes.
So I just, I mean, I think when they ask you a specific question, it's a lot easier to answer than tell us what you want us to know. So, but we can talk about that offline. That's not a problem.
Right. And I believe Carly posted Natalie's contact information. If anybody's interested in speaking with Natalie and potentially working with her on your applications. Or she just did it again. So if you want to work with Natalie later, you certainly can. Now, Austin asks, is there value and an appropriate way to appeal that would appeal that I have networked with alumni? We actually got this question this morning also. Mm-hmm. You want to take it?
Yeah, well, Linda and I have differing opinions on it. sort of kind of, not really.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think both of us agree that you don't want to be just listing out alumni to name drop or students to name drop, but pick one or two people that you've talked to where you've had a meaningful conversation or you have a meaningful relationship, and how they've inspired you in terms of, or maybe not, inspired is not the right term, but excited you about what lies ahead for you for Wharton. So it goes easily into the first question that Wharton asks, but I honestly would not name drop more than like two people. It's really, they don't give you much room. You know, you have a 500-word essay and a 400-word essay. That's not a lot of room. So do we want to be listing a bunch of names? Probably not. Where you can use alumni would be to put in a good word for you. So not a formal letter of recommendation, but if they have a relationship with the admissions committee, or even, you know, just one member of the admissions committee, and they can, you know, call them up or send an email and just say, hey, I really think very highly of this individual, then that's a good thing in terms of how you can use alumni that you know, or students that you know. If it's just you called them up and got some information, to me that's more of, and you don't have any other relationships, that's more of, this person inspired me or excited me about a particular class or initiative, or you know, whatever it may be that you're going to discuss in terms of what Wharton can contribute to you and your career goals.
Okay, great. Thank you. Maria is asking, can you discuss the executive assessment test? I don't have a lot to say about it. I understand it's shorter and easier than the GMAT or the GRE. It was initially created to for executive MBA applicants who are just less used to taking tests because they've been out in the working world, and it's supposed to be a better test for them. It's slowly but surely being adapted by many different MBA programs, specifically Columbia and NYU Stern. I know are both using it, and I think other programs have also adapted it. Natalie, do you want to add anything to that? You may know more about it.
I also don't know that much about it. None of my EMBA clients have taken it. My EMBA
Some of
clients
Cindy's have. Cindy's have.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Cindy might be a better person for this
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, but she's
But
here.
none of mine have. They've taken the GMAT or the GRE, and so I don't have a lot to say about the assessment. I think Linda captured what we know in general about this exam.
Okay. Then Samyak is asking, I have worked outside of my home country for 5 years now, therefore am considering louder seriously. Is there anything separate from the Wharton MBA to that application? I believe they have an additional essay to write, don't they?
They do, yes.
Yeah.
An additional essay and an additional interview.
Right.
So, which you don't typically schedule on the same day as your TBD. You can schedule them like a day apart, but I mean, honestly now with all the online, I mean, all of third round last year was done online. All the
Right.
TBDs were done online. And for second round, all the international TBDs were done online. So I imagine that that's going to happen in the future. So I think it could easily be scheduled on the same day, because the TBD itself, the entire process takes an hour. So, so yeah, I mean, you do have another essay, and you do have another interview. And I said this in the morning too. I think for anybody who's applying to these programs like Lauder or their health MBA or the law school, the joint degree with the law school, you need to talk to the program directors of those programs to get more information, to get in touch with students. You want to be talking to specific, you know, Lauder MBA joint students. So, so you have a good sense of what that program's about.
And Carly just posted the interview I had with the head of Wharton Lauder. I think it was almost exactly a year ago. So you may want to listen to that. Also, I'd recommend it. Okay, here's another question from an anonymous attendee. If you have a 3.2 GPA in engineering, but a GMAT score above 700, do you need to explain the GPA in the optional essay and why? Should recommenders talk about my analytical ability to prove I can handle the rigors of an MBA program? I think, I mean, Natalie, you're certainly welcome to add. I think it would depend on what are the reasons for the low GPA. Is there an upward trend to the GPA? What were your, you know, what were the actual grades? I mean, did you have basically 1A for every 3 Bs throughout. There's just too many details here. And then how much above 700 is your GMAT score? You just say it's above 700. Does that mean it's a 710 or a 790? And in terms of should recommenders talk about your analytical ability to prove you can handle the rigors of an MBA program? That's probably a good idea, but I'm not sure it's going to, I just don't have enough information. Natalie, how do you feel?
So I'm going to go back to what I said about the academic record, because GPA in its own little vacuum means nothing. And so, as Linda noted, we would need to see details, like what school did you go to, what kind of engineering, was there an upward trend, was there a downward trend, what's going on in terms of a 3.2. I could also say that there are some engineering disciplines that are more difficult than others and that I would expect a lower GPA for. So,
Also some schools.
Yeah, absolutely, schools.
No, I mean, some schools are known, specific, like UC Berkeley's engineering program is known for having almost no, grade inflation.
Yep. And then there's other schools that I won't mention who are known to have a lot of grade inflation,
okay,
who are also those. Top engineering programs. Not going to mention them.
All right, so let's see, a few more questions here. Kush asks, criteria to get scholarship and percentage of students getting it. The criteria to get scholarship, I would say, is, in terms of I assume you're talking here about merit aid, is to make the school look good. If you're going to come in with a high GMAT score and high GPA and above average everything, then you're more likely to get a scholarship. In terms of the percentage of students getting it at Wharton, I'm not sure. I haven't seen that number. I certainly don't remember seeing that number. I'm sure it's a fairly significant percentage that gets some scholarship money. I'm also fairly sure that it's a very low percentage that gets a full ride. Natalie?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of clients who've gotten money from Wharton.
Right.
And I mean, for me, when I was doing admissions and, the things that I would look for in terms of offering scholarship was, how badly did I want this person in my program? If I wanted this person really badly, I often gave a full ride scholarship. And I'd want to meet them several times. So we often, before I gave out a full ride, we would typically have them do like a day of interviews, a full day or a full weekend. So, so it wasn't just based on one interview and the application. We had many data points. But, I have to say, today I had a client who arrived on campus without a scholarship, not to Wharton, but to another school. And she wasn't expecting to get anything, but we talked night before last, and I said it never hurts to ask. And they came up with a 30% scholarship for her today, which is,
That's amazing.
the first day of orientation.
Yeah, they didn't even
She's
have,
there. Usually that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It usually happens before you make a commitment. So they obviously, this year's been crazy. They obviously have money left in their budget, and they offered her a third tuition, which she was over the moon. I mean, this doesn't happen at this late of a date. So,
right. I also think last year, I think the schools were more generous with scholarships. I mean, I know there's a budget; they can only give out so much money, but it sure seemed to me like they were more generous in the last year and two years than they have been previously.
mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
I would totally agree.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, this is supply and demand too.
Yeah.
Like do not submit your deposit until you hear about scholarship. And then, if you get nothing, you need to let them know that it might be difficult for you to come on campus unless you get some money. There's always wiggle room within the budget for scholarship. And there's some schools that are willing to barter and there's some schools that are not. So
As long as you're respectful and courteous,
yeah.
once you're accepted, it can't hurt you. So, okay, anonymous attendee asked, as a reapplicant, if my career goals have changed from impact investment to running the investment arm of a family business, will that be seen as a negative by admissions? Do I have to refer to what I wrote in my previous application? Natalie, you want to take that?
I think you need to talk about your thought process in the optional essay, because they're not going to give you a lot of room in that reapplicant essay. You get 250 words to talk about what you've done to improve your application. But if you, I think using the optional essay to talk about the thought process behind the change would be really important. Do you have to refer to your prior application? So when you check off the box that says, I have applied to Wharton in the past, then that reapplication essay pops up. So they will know that you're a reapplicant because you checked off the box. Not every school has that option in their application. So, you know, you said 2 years ago. Most schools would remember from 2 years ago, but you can certainly mention, particularly if you have a much stronger application this year.
Right. Or just, you could talk about, as Natalie said, the evolution of your goals. She didn't say when it was. So, okay, here's one more question from Sartak. If you are still trying to retake the GMAT, the previous was 700, but the practice tests are at around 740, 760. Congratulations. But the test date will only leave 2 weeks for the application. Is that enough time, or should I wait for round 2? My suggestion is, I can't give you a flat out answer on that. We've had people do excellent jobs on applications in 1 week. And we've had people struggle to get it done in months. So some of that depends on you. What I would suggest you do is try and aim for round 1. And if you feel you're doing a quality job and you can submit round 1, then submit. If you feel that it's really not ready, then wait. Because my rule always is apply, submit your application for the first round possible, provided you don't compromise the quality of your application. Natalie, do you have anything to add on that point?
Yeah, I mean, there was, so one of the things you said is, it only gives me 2 weeks to apply. Well, right now you have a little less than 4 weeks, or right, I think it's due on a Monday or Tuesday.
It's due on the 15th, September
15th. Okay. So why aren't you working on your application now? And if you don't get what you want on the GMAT, then you can work on the application some more. But definitely get it teed up for round 1. Don't wait until you take the GMAT to do that.
Yeah, I guess here's one of those things where we disagree a little bit. Okay. Because I would say focus on the GMAT now. I'm assuming that Sartak is working full time. And then after you get the GMAT, do your best to get the application done for round 1. And if you don't feel it's quality, wait. If you do feel it's quality, submit. But I think the reason he can't work on both is if he's working full time and he's studying for the GMAT, it can be tough to also work on the application.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anyway, we don't always think the same. It's okay. No, it's all right. So I want to thank Natalie, first of all, you for coming, for sharing your expertise and insight here, even if we don't always agree. And I want to thank the attendees, friends, for coming, for your questions, your time, your attention. And now I have a final thought, a final story, and a question that I'd like to pose to you. I'm hoping you can help me out with this question. The thought: there is a paradox inherent to acceptance at top business schools. You have to demonstrate that you both fit in and stand out. By fitting in, I mean that you belong at the target school, in this case, Wharton, in terms of your goals, academics, work experience, and values. That you're going to be a valuable member of Wharton's community. By standing out, I mean, you need to stand out in a highly qualified, intensely competitive, and talented applicant pool. Show that you are going to contribute distinctively, add a special something to the school's community, and make the admissions committee members proud they voted to admit you. So that's the thought I'd like to leave you with. And then one more story and one more challenge. Okay, this client that you're about to hear from had good stats and work experience, but he came from a highly overrepresented group and tended to write in cliched, general, and vague terms. He worked with Dr. Philippe Barr, and here is his feedback, which I've condensed a bit. In summary, Philippe helped me with 3 out of 4 of my essays and a quick resume scan. I applied to Stanford, Harvard, Wharton, and MIT Sloan, and was accepted to 3, waitlisted at Stanford. I'd highly recommend Philippe across the board. He was very kind and personable, but as I had hoped, he provided very direct and honest feedback. It was exactly what I needed. It helped me trust his comments and really reassess my approach when I needed to. When I disagreed with his comments, we discussed why. So I felt respected as a partner, and we always were very efficient. Lastly, turnaround and response time was incredible. If you want a reliable guide on this journey, like Natalie, who's been with us through the Q&A, or like Philippe, who you heard from, or Jennifer, who was mentioned in another testimonial, or like Cindy, whom I mentioned in terms of the executive MBA, who will kindly give you honest, trustworthy feedback and help you get into your dream schools, follow the steps on the screen, which are the steps taken by all the clients you've heard from this evening. They sought acceptance help and are now pursuing their dreams. Follow their recommendation and take the steps on the screen as they did to pursue yours too. So that's the story. And again, those are the steps I would really hope that you'll take. The people who are here now are those who listened to the entire presentation, which we tremendously appreciate, stayed for the pitch, stayed for the Q&A, and stayed for my closing thoughts. And I have to ask you, for those who are not yet clients, and there are a couple of people here who are, I'd really like to understand what is causing you to sit on the fence and hesitate about engaging with Accepted. And you can share your answers in the chat window or the question window, whichever you prefer. You're very welcome, Maria. Okay, so Abhishek says the cost. Sapayan says I'm applying next year. I apologize if I mispronounced somebody's name here. Cost, but definitely leaning towards now. Also, thank you so much for this. You're very welcome. Okay. Prior to this program, I didn't know about your services. Well, I'm glad you learned about them. I hope you're going to consider them now. All right, so let's start talking about some of these objections. The cost. The cost of our services is very clearly stated, right? You know exactly what it's going to cost you, or in terms of either per hour or some of the flat rate packages, you know that. But what's somewhat obscured or not quite as clear is the cost of not using our services. And I did mention that on a slide earlier. There's a possibility of having to reapply, which if you have to retake the GMAT could easily cost you a couple $1,000s, and even application fees, it can easily add up to over $1,000. There's the additional year of reduced pre-MBA earnings that you won't have if you get accepted earlier. There's also the potential that you could have gotten into a better school with better lifelong earnings potential, and that can cost you multiples of our fees. And there's the possibility that by working with us, that you, like one of the testimonial writers you heard from, could get a grant or scholarship that you otherwise wouldn't get or wouldn't get as much of. So those are all things that for those of you who are considering costs, and again, I know we're not cheap, you should consider them. You should weigh those in as possibilities. Okay, now somebody else, and Natalie, do you want to add anything to that? You still here, Natalie?
I'm here. I'm sorry. I was texting with one of my clients. He's in the session, so I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry, Linda. What was that?
Addressing the cost objection, but
okay.
we can move on from that, because another attendee wrote, I'm applying next year. So he's saying, why should he engage with us now? Do you want to address that one?
Yeah, I mean, I have a client who's going to be working, who's going to be applying in 2 years. So one of the things we get to do is really prepare for the application. So I give him homework. There's activities that he's doing right now to really create the strongest application he possibly can. He has, the time now to take these steps to have these actions that would enable him to create a really fantastic application. So
Okay.
Being prepared is a good thing.
Okay. All right. All right. So somebody else wrote, well, Samyak wrote cost, but I'm typing the inquiry form now, which is great. Thank you. And maybe something that makes repayment lighter, like installments. So there's two kinds of installment plans. One is PayPal offers, we PayPal credit, which is on our site, we participate in it, offers 6 months interest-free, no payment option. And that's an excellent one. The other option, we do payments, but we also require payment before we do the work. So if you are planning to apply round one, it's highly unlikely that we would be able to work out a payment plan through Accepted that would be possible. If you're planning to apply round two, we can definitely stretch out the payments over 3 or 4 months. And if you are planning ahead to next year, as one poster is, then we can certainly, have a much longer repayment period. So yes, PayPal unfortunately does not work outside the US. That's true. So again, some of this does depend upon when you start with us. The earlier you start with us, the longer repayment, more generous payment plan you can have with Accepted, and we do not charge interest or anything like that. But what we do require is that you finish payment before we finish work. Okay, now, Sapayan also asks, this may be a little tongue-in-cheek, but how does Accepted differentiate itself from some of the others, e.g. Stacy Blackman, or some of the cheaper ones like Applicant Lab? Well, one of the things that Accepted, I don't think there might be one company out there, one or two companies out there, is just longevity. We've been in business since 1994. We've been on the web since 1996. The experience of our staff is usually decades in the field. And you've been talking to Natalie. Natalie, how long were you an admissions consultant before you joined Accepted? I guess you're still
I'm sorry.
texting with.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's a lot of questions.
All right. If you have to go, it's okay. I mean, it's your client.
Yeah, I have a client right now, but so you asked how
I asked
many
how long
years
were
was
you
I
an admissions director before you started working for Accepted?
19 years as an admissions director, and I've been with Accepted for 12 years now.
Right. So you're looking at 19 and 12. Last I checked was 31.
Yeah, I'm very old, but also very knowledgeable and very experienced. And a lot of the people that I started in admissions with are the, deans of admissions still of these programs. So, so I do get insiders information, which, I will use to, help any of the Accepted clients. When I know something, it gets disseminated throughout the organization. So, so our clients benefit from the admissions experience that I have and the relationships that I still have with admissions officers. Having said that, this is not a varsity blues kind of situation.
No,
it's just purely
not.
information oriented. If they give me information, that's incredibly helpful. So, and that's what we see.
Right. The other thing I wanted to point out is just something actually that Natalie alluded to, is that while you will work consistently with one consultant, which is not true at all consultancies, and the consultant will become really expert in your story and helping you tell your story, and the consultant will be quite knowledgeable about all the top MBA programs and will probably have had clients accepted at Wharton. that individual consultant that is working consistently with you and again, going to know you inside out, will be backed up by the other highly experienced consultants at Accepted. We meet regularly, we communicate regularly among ourselves to help each other and support each other. We also have a peer review system where a certain percentage of your essays or drafts are going to be reviewed by somebody else. So all those are things that are distinctive about Accepted, if not unique. And I think they combine to contribute to a business that's been around for, as I said, 26 years and really has become a leader in the industry. Okay. And
I want to add that Linda's referred to AGAC a lot throughout this this talk. AGAC is the organization that, you know, keeps us honest. It's an organization that Linda started for
I co-founded.
graduate. Did you tell them in the beginning?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed the beginning.
It's okay. It's
anyway,
okay.
it does. I do think that that's really, it speaks a lot about Linda and her leadership. And there's a lot of longevity on our staff too. So I've been with the organization for 12 years, but Jennifer and Cindy have
over 20.
have been here, you know, longer than I have. So it's a great organization to work for. And it's a great organization to get your consulting from.
Great,
so
Sapia.
With that, I'm actually going to say goodbye to everyone because I do have a client
go take care of your
who's
client.
waiting for me. And I will, good luck, everyone. We hope to hear from you. And, you know, just let us know if you have questions.
Sounds
All right,
good.
thanks, Linda.
Thank you, Natalie. Really appreciate your being here. And
my pleasure.
Carly, if I could just, I'm sure this is really late for you, but if you could just post one more time Natalie's contact information, and we'll be in touch with the winners probably tomorrow morning, our time. I'm on Pacific time. And Maria, Natalie's obviously great. We also have somebody who specializes in EMBA applications. So with that, I want to wish you all good luck with your GMAT, with your applications, with your future plans. We look forward to working with you, and have a great evening or day, depending upon the place in the world that you're from. Take care.